Road to Glory honestly got some really big overhauls for College Football 27. EA added new positions, rebuilt player creation from the ground up, introduced new things like NFL draft projections, changed progression, and they even overhauled things like practice, fitness, and off-field decisions. But after reading through all of the details in the deep dive, I think there's one thing that stands out above everything else. For the first time in a long time, Road to Glory finally feels like it's trying to be about your entire football journey, not just simply becoming a 99 overall. This year, EA seems to be pushing much harder into the idea that every decision has consequences, not just on the field, but off the field as well. EA Sports said that the entire focus of Road to Glory this year is managing your potential. Now that sounds like marketing speak at first, at least that's what I think when I hear that, but when you actually look at all the systems they've added, it does look like it makes a lot of sense here. Throughout your career, you'll be managing things like your NFL draft projection, your legacy score, your fitness level, your academics, your leadership, your personal brand, your relationship with coaches, and even the wear and tear your body accumulates over multiple seasons. So if you're a 5-star recruit coming out of high school, you're going to arrive on campus with huge expectations. Maybe you're projected as a future first-round pick before you ever take a snap. But that projection isn't guaranteed. If you perform well, it can rise. If you struggle, get hurt, make bad decisions, or simply don't develop the way people expected, it can fall. And I love that they track this through the entire mode this year. And hey, if you're new to the channel and you want to stay up to date with the rest of the College Football 27 news and the exclusive videos I'm going to be dropping very soon on all of the different modes and gameplay, make sure to subscribe and turn the bell icon on so you don't miss them when they go live. So let's get into the real details of Road to Glory. We've got to start with player creation and new positions because that is probably the biggest news. We finally got new positions after so many years, and we got multiple new ones. The first thing you'll notice in Road to Glory is it now includes 3 new positions. You can be a tight end, an edge rusher, or a free safety, which are the 3 most requested positions that were not previously available. I think after this, people might want to still have a kicker or an offensive lineman, but we really have a lot of the most popular ones in the game now, which is good. Now, when it comes to tight end, you can build anything from a receiving threat that stretches the field to a complete blocker that dominates in the run game. On defense, edge rusher gives players an entirely new way to experience Road to Glory. Instead of reading coverages or playing linebacker, you're focused on attacking offensive tackles, getting after the quarterback, and becoming the guy that offenses have to game plan around every week. And then there's free safety, which is probably the most requested position overall. It is an old school favorite that people love to play, and I'm glad we've got that back. But as cool as the new positions are, I think the bigger story here is EA redesigned player creation itself. Because gone are the days of simply choosing an archetype and being locked into it. Now you're essentially building your player ceiling from the ground up. The process starts at your physique. You'll choose things like your height, your weight, your body type, but these aren't just cosmetic decisions anymore. Every choice impacts what your player can realistically become. For example, a larger player might have access to higher strength, power, and physical ratings. A smaller player might have access to higher speed, acceleration, agility, and movement traits. You can build a freak athlete, you can build a physical monster, but you probably can't build both at the same time. Those kind of players are really rare. Then comes in max potential, and this is where things get interesting. Think of your physique as determining what's physically possible, and then think of your max potential as determining what your player can actually become. So let's say your build allows for 95 speed. That doesn't automatically mean you'll reach 95 speed. You still have to decide how much of your potential you're investing into that attribute. Maybe you allocate enough points to eventually reach a 92, maybe you push it all the way to 95. Every choice comes with trade-offs somewhere else, and because of that, your build starts to take shape naturally. And what's really cool is your archetype is no longer something you manually select. The game actually determines your archetype based on the attributes you invest in. So maybe you start building a quarterback that you think is going to be a pocket passer, but then you keep investing points into things like mobility and athleticism. Suddenly the game starts recognizing you as a dual threat quarterback instead. Now, if you don't want to build everything from scratch, EA is also introducing legend templates. These are preset builds inspired by some of the greatest college football players ever. Names like Tim Tebow, Vince Young, Reggie Bush, and others. So for the first time, it feels like you're not just creating a player, you're creating a career path, and the decisions you make during creation are going to impact everything that happens afterward. Now that brings us to cap breakers and mental abilities. Once you've created a player and set your max potential, that doesn't necessarily mean those limits are permanent, because in College Football 27, it introduces something called cap breakers. And this is one of the smartest additions they've made. When creating your player, you're essentially setting the ceiling for what that player can become. But what happens if your player ends up having a legendary college career? What happens if you win the Heisman Trophy or become an All-American? Or if you win multiple national championships? According to EA, players can now earn cap breakers throughout their career that allow them to push beyond the ceilings they originally set during creation. In total, you'll be able to earn up to 25 cap breakers over the course of your career. These are earned through major accomplishments like winning the Heisman, becoming an All-American, so on and so forth. You can apply those cap breakers directly to specific attributes and raise their caps beyond what you typically allocated. So let's say you build a quarterback with a cap of 92 throw power. Normally that's where your development would stop, but if you have an incredible career and earned enough cap breakers, you may be able to push that ceiling higher. And the thing is, a lot of sports games eventually run into the same problem where all of the builds kind of start to just feel too similar. Everybody will figure out a meta and everybody builds the same player. But with the cap breakers, this does create a possibility for truly rare players. Now, while cap breakers are focused on your long-term development, mental abilities are focused on something completely different. They're focused on your life away from the football field. When creating your player, you'll choose 3 mental abilities, one tied to academics, one to leadership, and one to your brand. And these aren't just passive abilities that stay active forever. This is where things get kind of interesting because each mental ability is directly connected to a weekly agenda system. That means if you neglect one of these areas throughout your career, the ability can actually deactivate. For example, let's say you're using a mental ability tied to academics. If your academic meter falls too low because you're constantly ignoring your schoolwork, that ability can become inactive until your grades get back up. In previous Road to Glory modes, it sometimes felt like the weekly activities were just something you click through before getting into the football. This year, those decisions appear to matter a lot more. If you want the benefits that come with your mental abilities, you're going to have to maintain a lifestyle required to keep them active. And just like physical abilities, mental abilities can also be upgraded throughout your career. They begin at bronze and can eventually progress all the way to platinum. Now that brings us into starting high school, and this is a lot of people's favorite part of the mode, honestly, but I have to say right out of the gate, they have not expanded high school this year, which is something I thought they would do. It's not a full season, it's still a few games where you're playing moments, but they have made it a little better from what it sounds. The biggest thing to understand is that high school is no longer just about earning your stars this year. It revolves more around the tape score this time around. Every play you make, every objective you complete, and every big moment you create contributes to how schools evaluate you as a prospect. The better your tape looks, the more interest you'll generate from programs around the country. The high school season consists of 5 games with multiple playable moments during each game. Before every game, you'll choose what moments you want to participate in, much like last year. Each moment comes with objectives tied to your position and the situation you're entering. Maybe you're driving your team down the field on a game-winning score, maybe you're protecting a lead, maybe you're creating pressure as an edge rusher or forcing a turnover in a critical moment. The cool thing this year is the objectives are more designed to make sense contextually. Instead of random challenges, they're meant to reflect the actual situation you're stepping into. And one of my favorite additions here is something called expanded team impacts. In previous Road to Glory modes, it often felt like you only got rewarded for completing exactly what the game asked you to do. But this year, EA says you'll get more credit for simply making football plays, which is definitely good. Even if a big play isn't one of your objectives, it can still improve your tape score. Maybe you break off a 30-yard run, throw a deep touchdown, force a fumble, something like that. Those moments still matter, and they should, because last year it felt like big plays didn't really matter. It was all about the objective. Now both kind of work together, which makes sense. And another cool tidbit here that I wasn't fully expecting is they expanded the team builder integration. Players can now replace high school teams, opponents, and even college programs throughout Road to Glory using team builder. In total, you can replace up to 16 teams throughout your football world. So if you've built custom schools, fictional rivals, local programs, or completely unique football universes, you'll be able to integrate those directly into your Road to Glory experience. And what's really cool is those team builder schools can recruit you. That means you can receive a scholarship offer from custom created programs and begin your college career there. That's honestly a super awesome thing they included in there. Now, eventually, your performances in high school start turning into something every player is chasing, the scholarship offers, of course. As schools evaluate your tape score and decide whether you're worth pursuing, EA has made recruiting information much easier to understand. You'll be able to compare things like projected depth chart positions, scholarship bonuses, academics, leadership opportunities, brand opportunities, skill point bonuses, and other factors. It's all about finding the best fit for your player. Maybe one school offers immediate playing time, maybe another has a stronger scholarship package. But the really interesting change, though, is how scholarships work once you commit, because scholarships are no longer a one-time reward, they're annual. And I think this is one of the smartest additions they've made to Road to Glory. In previous years, once you picked a school, that decision was basically over. Now your scholarship becomes part of an ongoing relationship with the program. At the end of every season, your school will reevaluate you and determine what kind of scholarship package they're willing to offer moving forward. If you're performing well, handling your responsibilities, and developing as a player, the school may reward you with an even bigger bonus. But if you're struggling or making poor decisions, that offer can change too. And I really like that because it creates accountability throughout your entire career. It really creates a journey here. The school continues investing in you, but you also have to prove you're worth that investment. And this is really just the beginning, because once you step on campus, everything changes. The recruiting rankings and the stars next to your name stop mattering. Now you got to live up to the expectations. Now, once you're in college, this is where some of the other important changes come into play: draft projection and legacy score. And I really think that these two systems might completely change how people approach their careers. With draft projection, the easiest way to think about this is the football world's opinion on your future. The moment you arrive on campus, you're given an initial projection based on who you are as a recruit. If you're a 5-star prospect, you're entering college with massive expectations, as you should. In fact, EA says that 5-star recruits will generally arrive carrying first-round expectations. But those expectations aren't guaranteed, they're just projections, and projections can change literally every single week. Your draft day projection is constantly evaluated based on your on-field performance, your overall rating, your development, your achievements, your off-field decisions, your wear and tear, and your legacy score. You might arrive as a first-round pick, and if you dominate, win awards, and lead your team to championships and continue developing, your stock can rise and you could become like the first overall pick, for example. But the opposite can happen. If you struggle and you make those poor decisions, or you get buried on the depth chart or anything like that, your projection is going to start falling. One thing I find especially interesting is the role that wear and tear plays, because NFL teams aren't just evaluating talent, they're evaluating your durability. A player might be incredibly talented, but if they've accumulated significant damage throughout their career, pro teams may view them as a riskier prospect. So you're not just managing your performance, you're also just managing your entire future. Every decision has consequences, every season matters, and you'll be able to track your draft stock projection throughout this entire career. There's even going to be a projection graph that shows how your stock changes over time. Maybe a rivalry win will cause your stock to spike, maybe a Heisman season sends it soaring, but an injury or suspension can cause it to fall. And the game will track all those moments and show you how they impacted your journey. And then that brings us to the legacy score. While the draft projection focuses on your future, the legacy score focuses on your past. It's essentially measuring the impact you've had on college football. Your score is built throughout everything you accomplished during your career: winning championships, breaking records, taking home awards, creating memorable moments. All of those things build into your legacy. And I think that's a pretty cool distinction, because draft projections ask, how does the NFL view you? While legacy score asks, what kind of college football player were you? And those aren't always the same thing. Some players have incredible college careers but aren't elite NFL prospects. We see this all the time. Others become highly rated NFL prospects without accomplishing nearly as much at the college level. Road to Glory is now tracking both. And EA is even allowing you to compare your career against legendary players at your position. And to me, this is where the mode starts feeling less like traditional career mode and more like you're creating an actual football story, because you're not just chasing like a ratings boost anymore. You got to chase your accomplishments, your championships, records, and just greatness overall. And as cool as all that sounds, none of it comes easy, because once the season starts, you still have to balance football with your academics, your fitness, your leadership, and everything else, and that's where the weekly agenda starts playing a much bigger role than ever before. Now, once you arrive on campus, the weekly agenda becomes significantly more important than it was in previous year's games. Instead of spending energy directly for progression, you're now managing your fitness, and fitness affects almost everything. If you stay in shape, you'll earn benefits, your coach will be happier, your progression can improve, and you'll receive temporary attribute boosts. But if you neglect your fitness, there's consequences. Your players can gain weight, your coach can become frustrated, your progression can slow down, and certainly your ratings can decline. What I find interesting is that EA isn't treating fitness as a simple bonus. It's something you constantly have to manage. Just like in real life, getting back into shape is harder than staying in shape in the first place. So every week you're making decisions. Do you spend energy maintaining your body? Do you chase peak condition for maximum benefits? Do you focus elsewhere? Because every choice comes with a trade-off. Alongside fitness, you're also managing 3 major areas of your life: academics, leadership, and brand. These aren't just numbers on a screen. These are directly connected to your mental abilities that we talked about earlier. If your academic meter drops too low, your academics-based mental ability can deactivate. The same goes for leadership and brand. So suddenly, those weekly decisions carry a lot more weight. You can't completely ignore any of the areas in your life and expect everything to work out. You have to maintain balance. And that's where the new scenario and dilemma system comes into play. Throughout your career, you'll constantly face situations that force you to make choices. Maybe you have an important quiz coming up. Do you spend time studying, or do you gamble and hope for the best? If you study, you're sacrificing energy that could go towards your fitness, your leadership, or building your brand. But if you don't, you're taking a risk, and sometimes that risk can come back to bite you. One of the funnier examples EA gave was a Spanish quiz. If you decide not to prepare and end up getting a Spanish exam, the questions may literally appear in Spanish. And if you don't know Spanish, good luck. I mean, sure, I guess you can kind of Google these things, but that takes the fun away from it. So to me here, the biggest takeaway is that Road to Glory is creating consequences for your decisions in a way that we really haven't seen before. The point isn't going to be finding a perfect path, the point is creating your own path, and by the time you finally get to Saturday, all the decisions you've been making throughout the week are supposed to impact what happens on the field. Which brings us to another major overhaul this year, practice and game day. So let's talk about practice. Since weekly training is no longer the primary way to earn progression, practice now becomes one of the most important parts of your development. Whether you're trying to earn a starting job or maintain your spot on the depth chart, practice is going to matter. It says Road to Glory now includes over 50 new practice drills, which I like to hear that. These drills are built around actual football situations rather than feeling like isolated mini games. Some are going to be team-focused drills, like you might run a 2-minute offense where you need to drive down the field before time expires. You could work on red zone situations where every decision matters. The goal is to replicate situations you'll actually encounter on Saturdays. There are also position-specific drills. A cornerback or safety might participate in one-on-one coverage situations. A tight end could focus on open field blocking and leverage. And I think this is a smart direction because practice should feel like development. It should feel like you're actually learning your position. Now, your performance in practice still matters. The better you perform, the more XP you'll earn. You'll increase coach trust, improve coach happiness, and continue progressing towards your full potential. But eventually practice ends and then it's time for game day, and EA has made several notable changes here as well. One of the biggest is a complete overhaul of the per play grading system. If you've played Road to Glory before, you've probably experienced moments where the grading system just felt downright confusing. Maybe you got penalized for something that wasn't your fault, or maybe you made a great play and didn't feel properly rewarded. It says that they've built a grading system to focus much more on what you actually do during the play. So if you're tight end making key blocks, you'll be rewarded for that. If you're an edge rusher consistently creating pressure, you'll receive credit even if the play doesn't end in a sack. And it says here that EA is also trying to make the overall flow of games more smoother. Instead of constantly being pulled into menus when your player comes off the field, you'll be able to transition more naturally between moments. You can quickly super sim ahead of your next opponent or remain on the sideline and watch the game around you. If your drive stalls, the kicker comes on for a field goal attempt, you can actually stay there and watch it happen, which is great that they finally added that back. And to tie everything together, commentary is now designed to reference your career. Broadcasters can talk about major moments from your journey, rivalry performances, awards, championships, and other milestones that you have received throughout Road to Glory. Now, there are a few more systems we need to talk about because they tie everything else together, like progression, for example, which is becoming more granular. Instead of upgrading broad attribute groups, you'll now be able to invest directly into individual ratings, thankfully. So if you want more throw power, you can invest directly into that throw power. If you want speed, strength, route running, man coverage, whatever the case, you can target exactly what you want to improve. But there is an important catch here. You still can't simply grind your way to becoming a 99 overall superstar, because your overall rating is now tied directly to your legacy score. So in other words, you have to prove you deserve to become an elite player. Maybe your max potential says you're capped at being a 95 overall. That doesn't mean you'll get there. You have to earn legacy score through championships, awards, and other things to get to those thresholds. A 5-star recruit might have an easier path because expectations are already high, whereas a 2-star recruit might have to accomplish significantly more in order to convince the football world they belong among the elite. And honestly, that does feel pretty realistic. The game isn't just asking how good are your ratings, it's asking what have you actually done. Now, eventually every season comes to an end, and one of the new additions this year is the end of season coach meeting. This is where your coach sits down and evaluates your career, your performance, your development, your leadership. This is also where scholarship bonuses get reevaluated. If you've had a great season, your school may give you an even better package moving forward. But if you struggled or fallen out of favor with the coaching staff, things can get a little more complicated. And in some situations, your coach may even encourage you to move on. And that's where the transfer portal comes into play. At the end of the season, you'll have the option to enter the portal and explore new opportunities. Maybe you got buried on the depth chart, or other schools are just offering more playing time, or maybe you want a bigger scholarship package. Then you'll compare offers, evaluate opportunities, and potentially start a brand new chapter somewhere else. Honestly, that's the perfect way to summarize what Road to Glory feels like this year, because the mode isn't really about building just a player anymore. It's about building a career. Or at least that's what the notes say. Every single thing you do matters. Let me know below, how do you feel about the information of Road to Glory this year? Do you think it's where it needs to be, or is it still missing some things? And if you want to know everything about Dynasty Mode, which has got a lot of great changes this year, make sure you check out this video right here on the screen.